I want them in the farm. I don't think Benkum Oyoko. She don't know about Jazzy. ASANTEHENE. The Santa Gazem can't understand. Obtaining Boku Naname. Obtaining people who near my pump one anonymous. Nanajma Grandpa Naname. No, I know this is here. Many people are also me. And yes, from far, I'm not the best part of mine. Emma Santamas with the Sumo. Some of you go to me, no. Maybe that's what's what. That's my fun of prayer. Any mistake. My friend, work and my not contact.
It's brought a lot of joy, a lot of pride to ASANTEHENE and just as importantly to the country and indeed beyond.
Apart from those qualities of his, he can strike conversation with anybody and everybody. He's very truthful.
When, say, one is privileged to become president of Ghana, one should be aware of the critical role of the monarch of Asante to the well-being and progress of Ghana.
This one is a go-getter and a doer.
He prepared himself to be an ASANTEHENE and he's proved to the world that yes, this is the best that we could have.
Today, because of him, everybody who feels is somebody wants to become a chief.
On Monday, April 26, 1999, Berima Kwekudia swore the oath of office as ASANTEHENE, becoming the 16th occupant of the gold stool. Soon after the swearing in and confronted with a multiplicity of land and chieftaincy disputes that threatened the peace and stability of the kingdom, the new Otumfuo took off to work in settling these outstanding litigations, some of which had lingered on for over 20 years. The speed and skill, as well as the sense of fairness with which the new Otumfuo resolved these outstanding litigations, soon earned him the accolade King Solomon.
He's very smart. When you're talking, the very time you start, he knows where you're going to end.
There were so many cases littered in the courts, and our customary laws, were not being followed rigidly in determination of cases. So he had to meet with the established system, the courts, and ask them to stay off and try and bring all cases that had customary, that had traditional, to be handled, before him and his courts, which fortunately most of the people, they obliged him, and that was to set the pace to get all these things in order.
In his time, Otumfuo has let us understand the role of Queen Mothers, how important we are, and our rules of engagement. For example, when it comes to the selection and nomination of a chief, he's given the sole prerogative to the Queen Mothers as per what the Chieftaincy Act is saying, as far as the Ashanti customary laws is saying. In the olden days, we were having interference from the kingmaker or the principal elders of the stool and the Busuapeni as well. But he's defined our role perfectly well for us. That is the Queen Mother who has the right to select, nominate, and install a chief.
After many unsuccessful attempts by previous governments to resolve the decades-old Dagbon chieftaincy crisis, that led to the killing of the Dagbon paramount chief and about 40 of his courtiers, the then President of the Republic of Ghana, John Ejekum Kufuor, in 2002, appointed a 3-member committee of eminent chiefs chaired by Otumfuo Setutu II to find a lasting solution to what has become known as the Dagbon crisis.
My second year, 2002, report came from Yendi that there had been regicide. The Yana and Danny, who was my personal friend, even from before I became president. Anytime I got to Yendi, I would say figuratively that he laid the red carpet for me, gifts and everything. During the fire festival, there had been uprising and people had killed him. I just didn't know how to manage the situation. And then I set up the Waku Commission, chaired by former Supreme Court Judge Justice Waku. They did good work, but the solution didn't lie in a legalistic solution, not a commission of inquiry. The people were not pacified. So I approached Otumfuo, put the matter before him, enlisted his help, said, Nana, help me to assure the Dagombes that my government was innocent, that we wished the best for them, but we just we find ourselves in this trap that we are innocent of. Otumfuo considered the matter. It's all right. You join the two old kings and then approach the Dagombes to see if they would listen. We use traditional means to resolve this, the impasse there.
Your Excellency, you recall that there was a time that we nearly found a solution short of the regency issue. And therefore, my children went back and then came back to say that if we don't resolve the regency issue, then we cannot bury the young. So we had to come back. Finally, we got to a position where we were able to accept the fact that now Muhammadu Abdullahi, by the orders of the Supreme Court in 1986, was said that he must be recognized as a former Yana and his sons must also be recognized as sons of a former Yana. Your Excellency, we present you the communique issued after our deliberations, and we hope that is the roadmap for peace.
He's always been a peacemaker, but one of the remarkable things that he did, as you know, was a crucial role, the leadership role he played in the resolution of the almost intractable Yendi crisis. He got personally involved. He showed remarkable leadership, bringing all sides together. Nobody thought it was possible. But the fact that Yendi is now enjoying peace, and there's been a wonderful, peaceful transition of power in Yendi, speaks an awful lot about the leadership qualities that Otumfuo has and has demonstrated at the national level.
To agree to come together was a problem. But ASANTEHENE as their father, and they will say, father, father, father. As their father, who managed to get them together. He drew up an 18-point solution to the problem.
Today, Dagbon is at peace. We have a new Yana, and the atmosphere is very different. And so I really see Otumfuo as a major asset for Ghana. As far as our nation building is concerned, he's really been phenomenal.
In spite of the long-standing feud between Asantehene and Techimanhene over 4 Asante towns, namely Tanoso, Tuobodom, Tanoboase, and Boyem, dating back to 1935, Otumfuo Setutu II in June 2007, while on his way to Nkuranza to attend the funeral of the late Nkuranzahene, Oketechie Agyeman-Kudom IV, stopped over at the palace of the Techimanhene to respond to his overtures for peace. It has been said that elections in Africa provide the greatest security threats to the nations on the continent. Ghana, however, has been widely celebrated for its peaceful yet competitive elections and transitions following elections. What is less known is the anxiety, tension, and fear of destabilizing partisan violence that often descends on the nation around election day, and the immediate aftermath of each general election. In 2001, following the difficult political transition from the almost 20-year rule of Flight Lieutenant Jerry Rawlings to the newly elected President John Agyekum Kufuor of MPP, Otumfuo Osei-Tutu II, ASANTEHENE, played an important role behind the scene to manage and diffuse the tension between the ex-president and his successor to ensure a stable transition.
He would say that he has to go to Kumasi and has to go very early. So sometimes like 3 a.m. he's setting off. I'm like, you can go at 5. No, he wants to get there, relax before he goes, because he wants to have breakfast before he goes to the meeting and stuff like that. But they had, I think, not less than 3 meetings with Nana. I can tell you for a fact. I don't know if they had more than that. So results, I don't know.
Once I was in Accra when I got a call from Otumfuo. Please, would you come to Kumasi? Some matter we need to talk about. We fixed the time. I went to Kumasi one evening, went to Otumfuo's residence. And there, President Rawlings was present, sitting there. So just the 3 of us, Otumfuo, President Rawlings, myself, we got chatting a bit. Then Otumfuo relayed the issue to me. He said, President Rawlings had come 3 charges.
There have been many times when he's been called upon. You recall that when President Atamels of blessed memory became the president, he had this difficult relationship with the previous president, Flight Lieutenant John Rawlings of blessed memory. And it took Otumfuo to knock heads together, meet them, and help them find a path for a more constructive engagement going forward.
I have come to know and appreciate as a consummate and a quintessential patriot. He speaks Ghana and he dreams Ghana. And whenever you talk to him, inevitably you are talking about the country.
The tension between President Kufuor, then the head of state of Ghana, and his predecessor Jerry John Rawlings was eased up after ASANTEHENE interceded. Here, you can find the 2 top politicians relating to each other beautifully. The scene was recorded just after their talks, mediated by Otumfuo Osei-Tutu II. On the eve of the 2012 parliamentary and presidential elections, in response to the state of national anxiety and panic, Otumfuo Osei-Tutu II answered a request by the National Peace Council and civil society leaders to convene a meeting in Kumasi at KNUST of all the presidential candidates of the December 2012 elections. The result of these meetings and deliberations is what resulted in what has been christened the Kumasi Declaration, under which all the presidential contestants signed a document binding them to accept the results of the elections as declared by the National Electoral Commission.
It is not by accident that over the last 20 years, we've had relative calm, even amidst all the storm that the politicians generate. The last but one election, I was part of the process that managed to prevent what could have been a very chaotic development. I had to call him at night. There is a danger facing this nation, and please intervene. I was present when I know the words that His Excellency the President said to him. Picked up the telephone and said, Otumfuo, you are the only person who can save the nation.
Otumfuo has been on the throne for a few decades, and during that period he has proved to be not only a traditional ruler, that is a leader of his people, but also he's proved to be a national icon and one who comes in sometimes when we have crises.
On Monday, October 22, 2018, students of Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, KNUST, marched in protest against what they said was unfair treatment by the university authorities and unwarranted assault on their colleagues by some security officers who were supposed to protect them. The peaceful protest turned violent, resulting in the threats to people, public order, and the destruction of public, school, and individual properties. The government of Ghana and the university authorities, unable to maintain order, had to shut down the university. All this took place while Otumfuo Setutu II, ASANTEHENE and Chancellor of the university, was away on a short foreign trip. On his return, Otumfuo quickly embarked on constructive engagement with all the stakeholders that included students, lecturers, university administration, and government. Through the use of time-tested alternative conflict resolution skills, Otumfuo Setutu II, ASANTEHENE, helped to end the crisis and restored peace and tranquility among the contending groups.
22nd October 2018 is still fresh in our memories, when we had a lot of challenges with students demonstrating. He came in very quickly, and what did we see? Everything was resolved, and we're back normally to continue our academic life. Otumfuo Setutu II, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology is grateful to you.
In the late 90s, the government of Ghana introduced academic facility user fees. Before the introduction, students were even on demonstrations saying that they thought the cost was going to be too much. But the universities made it very clear that without that financial contribution from the government, the universities would not be able to operate. And government, knowing very well that it would not be in a position to provide that money, implored on the universities to ensure that the students will also contribute to the education. So this was a time the Otumfuo ASANTEHENE came in. And I remember as a student on the University of Ghana campus, when Otumfuo came in, most of us thought that it was going to be a package for students from the Ashanti region. But later on, information came that Otumfuo's jurisdiction extended beyond the Ashanti region to include even some parts of the Volta region, Eastern region, the then Brong-Ahafo region. So I remember very well many students, maybe counting as many as 400 or 500 from different parts of the country, were given this opportunity. And to emphasize properly, it really assisted a lot of students, because these monies must be paid before the university will even assign you residential accommodation, before a student will even be allowed to register.
The result of all the peace initiatives was that the World Peace Bell Association and Vital Capital donated to Menchia Palace a World Peace Bell that was erected in honor of the late Kofi Annan, former UN Secretary General.
Otumfuo was with the Pope in 2015. I happened to be present, and he talked about the need to deepen interfaith relations the whole world over. And I don't know whether you might have seen that in recent times the Pope invited almost all the religious leaders from across the religious divide, the Muslims, the Buddhists, all the non-agnostic institutions were invited to Rome, and the Pope had good audience with them.
The president of the 73rd session of the United Nations General Assembly, Her Excellency Maria Fernanda Espinosa, also extended an invitation to His Majesty Otumfuo Setutu II to address the United Nations General Assembly High-Level Forum on Culture of Peace during the 25th anniversary of the adoption of the Declaration and Program of Action on a Culture of Peace, the first time in the history of the United Nations that a non-head of state African traditional leader had been invited to address the August forum.
In this climate, I suggest that the UN family cannot afford to remain glued to the established order without seeking pathways of reaching out to establish appropriate links capable of exerting the right influence in the quest for peace and security. I speak here particularly of Africa.
One of the first priorities of Otumfuo Osei-Tutu II during the first few months of his reign was the architectural modernization and expansion of Menchia Palace to reflect and meet the changing needs of the times. The history of the modern palace of the King of Asante dates back to the 1800s, when King Osei-Bonsu erected what was then known as the Abankesieso after the architectural designs of the castles on the coast. Work on the most recent remodeling of the palace, initiated by Otumfuo Osei-Tutu II, began in November 1999, and by 2002, when the first phase of the project was completed, Menchia had been significantly transformed, not only in grandeur, but also in function. To upgrade the facilities for receiving guests and hosting other functions, the ASANTEHENE Otumfuo Osei-Tutu II in 2024 caused to be constructed a 1,500-seating capacity auditorium as part of the modernization of the palace. The regalia of an Asante king includes, among others, ceremonial cloths, ornamental jewelry, gold bracelets, insignias of office and other stool paraphernalia, including ceremonial swords, guns, etc. Otumfuo Osei-Tutu II, in the general belief as the reincarnation of the founder of the Asante nation, Opiemsuo Osei-Tutu I, has since his installment in 1999 gone to extraordinary lengths to enhance and help preserve the sanctity of the Ejapadier or stool regalia and valuables that he inherited from his predecessors.
Santini bi aba obo echiame no na obo chiame puma e di ama no. Nti na mdi ye mfoto ho. Se na prempe de second. Obo chiame danso. No bo ntuma ma no. Na pukuware. Tumfu pukuware. Okoni krechi. Onso bo chiame bo si akon. No so obo ntuma ma no. Ti yewura Otumfuo Osei-Tutu otosu no tisisi yeso. Obae no. Onso abopuma, abachiame asa abopuma ma no. Na nema wa ye die. Ye ka se ye ka adebesa. Sa gudie pa gudie. Regalia pa Nigeria wa ye wo oya dia ma akunya no. Bi se ha e ben wa se e fe no buram. Oni Otumfuo agudie nya ye no. Amena mtiasi a hwe entemwa se nyina nti dia koso bia ti ade a wayama sa ba nwa no a yesikedwa no e mo akura na mu bi ne sapmen enso e de scan de ye jamet money ska gold and e
he has created 4 such ceremonial swords, and the names are very interesting. One is Esie, one is Sakatim Kobi, one is Esebusei, and the other is Ebubumaba. And in addition to that, he's also created a linguist staff, Nusruma and the Osram, to recognize one of the senior long-serving linguists at the palace. These are very significant to me, especially because the other things people can know, but his addition to the regalia that he came to meet is what signifies or keeps out as somebody who is committed to his tradition while operating in a modern state.
He is encouraged traditionally our people to learn more about what they, I mean, if you are a sword bearer, it is not just carrying that sword, but knowing why, how did they come to your people.
On Saturday, October 1st, 2005, a colorful ceremony was organized at Menchia Palace to commemorate the return of the collection of Asante Royal Stool regalia and valuables from the Baden-Powell family, a collection that had once been stored at the Hampton Court Palace in London. The then Chief of Defence Staff of the Ghana Armed Forces, Lieutenant General Joseph Boachi Dankwa, led a contingent of the military to personally hand over the collection and its accompanying documentation to Otumfuo Setutu II, ASANTEHENE. The collection was made up of 332 gold weights and ornaments and 27 gold dust containers. A number of royal artifacts looted from Ghana's Asante Kingdom in the 19th century are being returned. The royal objects were taken from the palace in Kumasi during the Anglo-Ashanti Wars, including the infamous Agrenti Wars in 1874. 2 set deliveries occurred within the first 4 months of 2024, just prior to the Silver Jubilee anniversary of the 16th occupant of the Ashanti Gold Stool. One arrived from California, USA, for permanent custody in the Menchia Museum in Kumasi. The other, which is on loan, came from the British Museum. The return of regalias to Ashanti is the culmination of efforts by several kings of Ashanti and again trumpeted by Otumfuo Setutu II. The demands date back to the reign of Agyeman-Prempeh I through Agyeman-Prempeh II and Otumfuo Pukuwari II. Otumfuo's activities over the last 2 decades in the area of philanthropy, particularly in the promotion of education, has been well documented. He was the first traditional leader in our modern times to establish an education fund for the brilliant but needy student. Various traditional councils took a cue from Otumfuo's lead and established their own education promotion initiatives for their indigents. By the year 2020, over 25,000 students from across the country had benefited from the education fund.
Whenever you hear about Otumfuo Education Fund, you may think that it's only for scholarship. It's not. As a strategist himself, he decided to look at for other things he can add to support the education. Education is not just paying the school fees. There are others. So there was avenue for people to get direct support through payment of school fees. Again, he decided also to acquire materials for them, reading materials and uniform, school sandals, chalk. He entered into infrastructure, rehabilitated schools and set up new ones, about 40 new 6 classroom blocks with teachers' bungalow were put up within the first 5 years with support from the World Bank.
Yes, I'm passing in Kumasi. Job. And so we check Ghana mo over Dunsi and mood do me no there. I are for a woman in a honey eba. Job. Ufa Namokasa emo regency. A mood do me no there. Aha, ebaha. Job. And so may fear you know. A yenim we are same yenara. Job. Kwame Nkrumah ko ababa a dynasty. Job. Me know not to ye. Job. And yet politics are simply and every me know you never see a required by Yamana ye. Job. Yabayan Swamana ye. Job. Sika one more after ye had 2 many. Your body and answer to simple a fear piara, a siasa, who Kumasi piara, Sawomame, Sidi Waha, Nasa Sidi, Nukra, 200 cities crab, or Sume Crown of the Mammy, I bet him there.
Following this, Otumfuo Setutu II has himself donated $5 million towards the Okomfo Anochi Teaching Hospital Rehabilitation Project. The activities of Otumfuo Setutu II as a development agent soon caught the attention of the international financial institutions, and the World Bank rewarded him with a grant of some $4.5 million in July 2003 to undertake developmental initiatives for his people, the first time that the Bretton Woods institution had ventured to fund a non-head of state African traditional ruler for infrastructural development in his area of authority. Under this program dubbed Promoting Partnerships with Traditional Authorities Project, PPTAP, various infrastructural projects in education, water and sanitation were undertaken.
We visited the UN and had preliminary discussions with the UN. It was this visit to the World Bank in 2004 that Otumfuo impressed upon the World Bank the need for them to have closer collaboration with traditional authorities, because traditional authorities, to our view, was the body that would endure all the privations of political turmoil when the dust settles, because politicians come and go, but chieftaincy and the institution remains intact. So he felt that if chiefs were supported to carry out development projects, it would be more permanent than politicians using it as an election gimmick. So the World Bank bought into this idea and granted us a huge facility to do this traditional authority partnership with the World Bank.
And that is the first time that the bank has ever lent to a chief. Of course, it was eventually supported by government. But it shows how Otumfuo, can play it. He got it, and there's a lot of schools. People were beginning to wonder, is he a chief or is he a finance man?
Since his installment, Otumfuo Osei-Tutu II has occupied himself with facilitating and promoting the establishment of businesses to create employment opportunities for the youth in Asantehene. Examples of such efforts include his support for the following businesses: Asanka Gold Mining, Golden Tulip Kumasi City Hotel, now called Lancaster Kumasi City Hotel. And for Kumasi City Mall, this is the chairman of the mall, Mr. Kofi Sechere.
Otumfuo used to come to South Africa, which was my base. So on one of those visits, we're having a discussion, and he says, Kofi, if you're going to do a mall in Accra, as a son of the golden stool, you have to look at Kumasi, and I'll make sure it happens. So I brought the partners to meet Otumfuo in South Africa. We spoke about it, and he assured us whatever support that we need, he will make sure this mall becomes a reality in Kumasi. And true to his word, that land that he made available made it possible for us to even start the discussions to acquire the lands around it. So he was quite central to it. Even having given the land, there were the legal issues. It was taking a while. And again, on one visit, he asked me, Kofi, how come this thing is dragging and dragging? And I said, we have some legal issues. He says, what legal issues? Please come and see me when we get back to Ghana. So I went to see him, and within a week, all issues resolved. The road was clear for us to get the paperwork, and that triggered Kumasi Mall. So without him, this wouldn't have been possible.
Gold production at the Obuasi mine had been on decline since 1995 due to underground infrastructural challenges. In 2014, Obuasi was placed on limited operations, and the staff strength of about 4,235 was drastically reduced to 290. Things had gone bad when in 2012 an attempt was made by Anglo Gold Ashanti to hand over Obuasi back to Government of Ghana. Sensing more job losses and collapse of gold's contribution to national revenues, the king intervened at all times in protection of the business via strong advocacy. Finally, the tide has changed. The President of the Republic of Ghana and His Majesty the King of Asante jointly launched the Obuasi Redevelopment Project in 2019.
In 2016, when the mine was partly overrun by illegal miners, which threatened the very existence of the mine, we were knocking on his doors. He understood the threats we were facing. He understood fully the long-term impact it was going to have if it wasn't addressed. He counseled us. He found his own ways of intervening to ensure that law and order was restored. Beyond that, when we started putting together the plans to get the mine redeveloped, what we call the Obuasi redevelopment project, all along the line, we constantly sought his advice and counsel, and we made sure he was updated on progress. All that came together nicely when the Otumfuo and the president came to site to launch the redevelopment project. As you can see from the picture, I have proudly displayed on my wall. So that is the sort of relationship we have as a business with Otumfuo.
This is one of the business and investment forums organized in Kumasi at the instance of ASANTEHENE, where he laid a sales pitch to drive inflows of local and international capital or investment. The personalities the optics revealed so far in the scenes are only the tips of the iceberg of his investment drive. The king walks the talk as a mark of his exemplary leadership. He has established fruit processing and jute manufacturing plants within Ashanti. His Majesty believes in action over verbiage, thus he has put these factories in place, setting up a farmer outgrower scheme to feed production lines with raw materials. And most importantly, these are providing jobs for his people.
At the full operation, we expect to employ close to 1,000 to 1,500 workers, just one factory. Perhaps it might be the biggest factory in Kumasi. I don't know about Accra, but if you have a factory that has as many as 1,000 workers, it's huge by every standard you look at it. So it's a 60-ton per day jute factory. The second SDG goal is food security and nutrition. The mango farm, the pineapple farm, the oil palm, and the cattle ranch, these are all agricultural ventures that are supposed to contribute towards achievement of food security.
One area that Otumfuo Setutu II has affected development of Asante is in the area of working with various central government administrations to facilitate the financing of projects earmarked for Kumasi and Asante in general. Some of such projects include the following: KJTIA or Central Market Redevelopment, redevelopment of Kumasi International Airport, Kumasi Rose Rehabilitation Project, maternal and child block redevelopment at Konfanochi Teaching Hospital in Kumasi. One such major investment drive by Otumfuo Setutu II is his partnership with Vital Capital LLC that has resulted in the establishment of the largest residential gated community at Prabong, named Prabong Greenfields, located about 25 minutes from the center of Kumasi. Otumfuo Setutu II, as a champion for the preservation of the environment, has established the ASANTEHENE's landscape restoration program to reclaim lands and water bodies that are undergoing destruction in Asante. The first phase of the program, dubbed the Lake Bosontwe Restoration Project, seeks to address and reverse certain trends in the ecology and environment in and around the lake that threaten the sustainability of the lake and its environs. Since 1999, when Otumfuo Setutu II was installed as the 16th occupant of the gold stool, he has worked with and supported the various central governments in the country to promote the various national development agenda, starting with the John Ejekum Kufuor administration to the current administration of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. These include the HIPIC initiative.
If Otumfuo had not been there in Washington at that time to influence his friends to work on IMF, I don't know what would have become of Ghana's budget. And people may not know, but for that epic success, I tell you, perhaps the economy of Ghana today might not be the same. We wouldn't have made the headway. We moved from, if you would remember, the lows of something like 300, 400 US dollars per capita, 2001, 2002 and thereabouts. By 2006, Ghana hit per capita GDP of $1,300. That was what moved Ghana from
the doldrums, perhaps,
to middle income.
Facilitation of IMF support for the Ghanaian economy.
We had to go to the IMF, but you don't just walk into the IMF like that. And we needed to do that fast. And so even though we had written to the IMF, they were taking their time to set up a mission and all that, and come and do a pre-assessment and all that. Meanwhile, we needed this to happen fast, so that the economy could start to come out of the hole in which it was. And so I discussed it with Otumfuo. One of the times I went to Kumasi and I discussed with him and I said, look, we've decided to go to the IMF, but the IMF are dragging their feet and it's taking too long for them to make a decision. But I know you have contacts, with some of these leaders of international finance institutions. So I want you to, get involved and see how you can get us into a program. So he quickly agreed. And I agreed with him. He said he would go and talk to Jim Wolfenson, who was his very good friend and former managing director of the World Bank. So he called Wolfenson, he got an appointment and everything. So we facilitated it. He came to Accra and he flew to Geneva or somewhere where Wolfenson was. Went and met him. And he went with Wolfenson to US and went to the IMF office and met Lagarde, who was the head of IMF at the time. And she went and talked to him and said, look, my country wants to get into a program. Your people are taking too long. These are the issues. Of course, we had briefed him what the issues were. And so Lagarde, said, oh, okay, we'll deal with it. And so she called the mission chief for Ghana and all that and gave them instructions. And then we noticed that things started moving quicker. And then eventually we signed off on the IMF program.
Facilitated the release of $174 million education support for Ghana.
Before my entry into the Ministry of Education, there was a project funded by World Bank for secondary education improvement project. And so when we came, we decided that we needed to roll out a program that would ensure learning outcomes accountability across all basic education in this country. So we had gone to and fro with the World Bank, hoping that we could go and sign at the last minute, go and sign the agreement for that. And just before we went, we got information from World Bank that the new World Bank president has put all such projects on hold and is not intending to fund it. So yes, true, we had frontier calls from the World Bank. And fortunately for us, Otumfuo, Osei-Tutu II, may he live long, was going on a private visit to Washington. And if he was going to the World Bank, he needed to speak to the World Bank president on two critical projects that we are doing.
And lobbied for the selection of Ghana to host the African Continental Free Trade Area headquarters.
We had 7 very strong countries that put in their bets, and that included Egypt, Eswatini, Ethiopia, Ghana, Kenya, Madagascar, and Senegal. Now, as the leader of the planning team for pushing Ghana's bid, I decided that in view of the intensity of the competition ahead of us, that it would be very critical for me to mobilize the entire cabinet and senior government officials to put their weight behind this campaign. But it needed to go beyond government officials. For me, it was important that we identify eminent personalities in Ghana who, beyond the weight of government, could also bring
their own reputation to bear upon Ghana's bid to host the Secretariat. And obviously, one of the decisions that we made as a planning team was to respectfully request through His Excellency the President that His Majesty, His Royal Majesty, the ASANTEHENE, also lend his weight to the campaign.
They needed Otumfuo to use his good offices and his extensive network to assist Ghana to be selected as host of the Secretariat. Then the idea also came that he could send me as an emissary to go. So I was wearing a double hat as an emissary of government and as emissary of the king.
If you look at the angles that Otumfuo went through to support Ghana's bid, I have no doubt in my mind that he played a pivotal role in helping Ghana to be able to win the bid to host the Secretariat.
The tremendous achievements of Otumfuo Setutu II over the last 2 decades has attracted worldwide recognition and reinforced the historical image of the Kingdom of Asante and its exemplary leadership and pace-setter role of traditional rulers in Ghana and Africa. The result of all these is that Otumfuo Setutu II has received numerous invitations from around the world for official visits to monarchs, countries, international organizations, and distinguished personalities. The long-standing relations between the Ashanti Kingdom and the British monarchy, dating back to the early 19th century, have been cemented in the reign of Otumfuo Setutu II. Soon after his installment as the King of Ashanti, Otumfuo Setutu II was invited by the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth II, to pay an official visit to the Buckingham Palace.
I was, privileged to sit in the same car with Otumfuo as we entered Buckingham Palace. And the meeting went very, very well. The Queen would normally invite people to tea for about 20 minutes, but Otumfuo's conversation with the Queen was such that it lasted for about an hour, and all the aides wondered as to what was happening, which had engaged the Queen's attention for that long.
This was followed by visits to Menchia Palace by some of the most senior members of the British monarchy, including the Earl of Wessex, Prince Edward in May 2016, Princess Anne, the Princess Royale in April 2017, and the Prince of Wales, Prince Charles in November 2018 and May 2019. Earlier in 2001, both Asantehene and the Prince of Wales were awarded honorary doctorate degrees by the University of Glasgow, which was marking its 550 years of existence. The Millennium Excellence Awards, initiated in 2000 by its foundation under the high patronage of Otumfuo Setutu II, takes preeminence over all other awards in Ghana. Some recipients are former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan, Cardinal Peter Appiah Turkson, and a former Archbishop of Cape Town, Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Pictured here is a former Togolese Prime Minister, Edem Kojo, attending the Pan-African Awards in Accra, Ghana in 2005. During the coronation of King Charles III, Asantehene Otumfuo Setutu II was amongst the leading monarchs of the world who were invited to attend his enthronement, and was actually made to lead all the royals into the Westminster Abbey for the inauguration ceremonies. The impact of Otumfuo's activities has attracted recognition worldwide. Various international dignitaries have come to visit with and pay courtesies. President Blaise Compaoré of Burkina Faso in 2002, the 7th UN Secretary General Kofi Annan 2002, Prince Al-Walid bin Talal bin Abdulaziz Al Saud of Saudi Arabia. In 2003, President of the Ivory Coast Laurent Gbagbo. In 2005, Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Dr. Mohamed El Baradei. In 2005, upon the completion of his term as the President of the World Bank, Mr. James Wolfenson paid a visit to the overlord of the Ashanti Kingdom. In 2006, Jamaican Prime Minister P.J. Patterson. 2006, Libyan leader Muammar al-Gaddafi. In 2007, President Faure Gnassingbé of Togo. 2008, President of Suriname, Ronaldo Venetian. 2008, President of Mali, Amadou Toumani Touré. 2008, President of Zambia, Levi Patrick Mwanawasa. In 2008, President of Sierra Leone, Alhaji Ahmad Tejankaba. 2009, President of Botswana, Festus Mogae. In 2009, Prime Minister of Spain, Jose Maria Aznar. 2009, the Archbishop of Cape Town, South Africa, Archbishop Desmond Tutu. In 2010, Chief Gabriel Osawaru Igbenedion. 2010, Nigerian playwright and poet Professor Wole Soyinka. 2010, German President Horst Kohler. In 2011, President Thabo Mbeki of South Africa. 2011, Governor General of Canada, the Right Honorable David Johnston. In 2013, Nigerian Head of State General Abdulsalami Abubakar. In 2014, President of the Seychelles James Michel. In 2015, the Ooni of Ife, spiritual head of Yoruba people Nigeria, His Majesty Enitan Ogunwusi Ojaja II. In 2016, Maltese President Marie-Louise Colero Pressa. In 2017, President Konan Bedier of the Ivory Coast. 2018, Emir of Kano Muhammadu Sanusi II. In 2019. In January 2022, the President of Hungary, János Áder, also led a high-powered delegation to the Menchia Palace in Kumasi. His host, Asantehene Otunfo Setutu II, used the occasion to appeal to officials to act on plans instead of signing documents only to gather dust on the shelf after the fanfare. President János Áder said Hungary will support Ghana in the area of agricultural technology and scientific treatment of water. All heads of state in Ghana's Fourth Republic have had the occasion to pay homage to the King of Ashanti, Otunfo Setutu II. They are Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, John Ejekum Kufuor, Professor John Evans Atta Mills, John Dramani Mahama, and Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Similarly, Otunfo received various invitations to make official visits to many countries and institutions around the world. Otunfo and Lady Julia with Queen Beatrice of the Netherlands. In 2002, Otunfo and the Archbishop of Canterbury, His Grace Rowan Douglas Williams. In 2003, Otunfo with former President Nelson Mandela of South Africa. In 2005, Otunfo with the King of the Royal Bafokeng Nation, South Africa, Lerio Molotlegi. 2005, Otunfo with President Ahmad Tejankaba, Sierra Leone. In 2005, Otunfo with the Executive Secretary of ECOWAS, Dr. Mohamed Ibn Chambers. 2005, the Oba of Lagos, Rilwan Babatunde Osualele Aremu Akiolu. In 2005, Otunfo with His Royal Majesty King Mohammed VI of Morocco. In 2006, Otunfo with the Patriarch of Orthodox Church of Jerusalem, Patriarch Theophilus III. 2009, Itan Stibe, Managing Partner of Vital Capital Fund. 2009, Shimon Peres, President of Israel. 2009, Otunfo with King Mswati III of Swaziland or Eswatini. In 2015, Otunfo and President Marie-Louise Calero Pressa of Malta. In 2017, President of Uganda, Yoweri Museveni. 2018, Otumfuo with His Majesty Muwenda Mutebi II, the Kabaka of Buganda Kingdom, Uganda. 2018, Otumfuo with Antonio Guterres, 9th UN Secretary General. In 2019, Otumfuo with Maria Fernanda Espinosa Garcia, President of the 73rd UN Session. In 2019, on the visit to Nelson Mandela by the King in 2005, this is what the Paramount Chief of Dwabin Asante, Nana Otuo-Srebo II, has to say.
We had a lot of, useful discussions with Mandela. Otumfuo forwarded a special citation to Mandela, which, went down very, very well with him, with Madiba. And Madiba promised a whole lot of cooperation between Ghana and South Africa.
The national and worldwide recognition of the achievements of Otumfuo II was demonstrated during the 20th anniversary celebrations of his installment. Apart from the international dignitaries who visited Kumasi to witness the celebrations, almost any person who is somebody in Ghana was present at the ceremony. This included the President of the Republic, the Vice President, Speaker of Ghana Parliament, the Chief Justice, the Inspector General of Police, Ghana's military chiefs, ministers of state, parliamentarians, other paramount chiefs from across the country, corporate executives, and thousands of ordinary citizens from across the country.
Now, when you talk about kings in Africa, perhaps the first one you mentioned is the King of Asante. And this all thanks to the reign and the achievements of His Majesty Otumfuo II.